Good morning and welcome to the United Way Southwest of Alabama's Safety Net series. This is our third year and we are very glad to be bringing you these broadcasts with our partner agencies so that you know what they're up to and how to refer people when they need services. Today we have Virginia Guy with the Drug Education Council, and we're going to be speaking to her about all the things that they are up to and that they do. But before we do that, we want to make sure and thank our sponsors for all of their support. So here we go. Good morning, Virginia. How are you?
Good morning. Doing well. How are you?
Great. Thanks. So give us the long and the short of it. What is the Drug Education Council?
Right. We are a nonprofit providing prevention, intervention, and recovery support services in South Alabama. So our main goal is to prevent addiction. So we want to talk to kids. Everybody knows about the opioid and overdose epidemic, and we're losing too many people. We know that the best of all worlds is to prevent people from ever becoming addicted. So we start very young, talking to kids with age-appropriate messages. Then we know that some kids are going to experiment and use. We want to intervene and stop that use before it becomes addiction. And then we know that with families who are struggling with addiction, we want to help them find their loved ones, the treatment that they need, and then catch them on the other end and provide a community with a lot of recovery support for those folks.
So that's a huge mandate.
It is.
So what does that look like day to day?
Well, we've got staff in the schools every day. We've got the DeBakey drug vehicle that's out in fifth grades, throughout the area. We've got counselors. We're working. We have people come into the office. We have a lot of family interventions. We're out talking to the community. We're doing a lot of media messages. It just involves a lot. We're kind of spreading the net across, because we know that there's the continuum of care. We know that addiction starts and there's a progression. We also know that there's a progression in recovery. So we support all of those efforts.
Okay. Now I've heard you speak about delaying.
Right.
How much of an impact that can make on a young person's development and health if the longer they delay from trying some of the things, even some of the legal stuff.
Well, that's exactly right. The brain doesn't know the difference between the illegal and the legal. Right? So, we know that addiction is a brain disease. We know that it's a very complex disorder that involves genetics and environment. None of us can do anything about our genetics. We do know that there are some people who are genetically predisposed, but that doesn't mean they are going to develop addiction. We know that the biggest predictor of whether somebody will experience an addiction issue later in life is age of first use. The brain is still developing. In fact, we used to think it was fully developed when the brain filled out the cavity in the skull. Now we know that the brain is doing really important developmental things during those teen years, that 14 to the early 20s. The brain is developing all the executive functioning and, it's fine-tuning itself. And so we know that the longer we can delay the onset of drugs, because drugs disrupt brain development. And so whether that's legal or illegal drugs, we want to delay. If somebody does need to use any of these drugs, particularly some of the medications, we want the lowest dose for the shortest amount of time. So I think if families and parents and grandparents and people, working with kids can just understand how the brain develops, it's a little bit like wearing a helmet. We really want to protect that brain and develop that child into the healthiest person they can become.
Wonderful. So I took a peek at your website this morning before we were scheduled to talk, and I see that you guys have several things coming up and an event actually really soon.
Right. We've got Drug Take Back is coming up. In fact, it happens 2 times during the year, in the fall and in the spring. And but there's some drop-off facilities for drugs throughout the year too. So we want everybody to clean out their medicine cabinets, to make sure that they keep all of the medicines in their cabinets up to date. And also, if you're taking care of your parents, look at their medicine cabinet, because sometimes if your father, grandfather, somebody is on heart medication, but the cardiologist has changed their medication, we want to dispose of those drugs appropriately. We know that the the purest way to dispose of the drugs is to take them to the drug take back, and then the DEA takes them and does a high heat incineration that keeps them out of our water supply and our air supply. So it's not only to keep these drugs out of the hands of kids or people who may misuse them, but it's also to keep our environment clean. So there's all kinds of good things, and it's to keep our family members from mixing up their medications. So just like you do spring cleaning and fall cleaning, we want you to be sure and remember your medicine cabinet. We also the any of the like vitamins, pet pharmaceuticals, any of those kind of drugs, we just don't need to be thrown into the garbage or flushed down the toilet, because that gets into our water supply. So we encourage everybody to bring those. You can go on the DEA's website and type in your zip code, and it'll tell you the closest drop off for you.
Okay. What else you got going?
Well, we've got Red Ribbon Week, and
Okay.
Red Ribbon Week is a national. It's the oldest, longest running national drug prevention program in the nation, and we have expanded it locally to a year long program. So we have kicked off where we select a student from every public and non-public school in our area to be the Red Ribbon leader on their campus, and they will lead Red Ribbon Week activities in late October, and then they'll do a community service project through the rest of the year, and then in the spring, we recognize the work that those kids have done. We know that one of the biggest drug prevention efforts is to bond a child with their community. We know if they're bonded with their community, they're less likely to become involved with drugs or violence or gangs or any of the negative stuff they shouldn't be. So this community service is one of the best ways to bond a child with their community. And also it's good United Way stuff, because it's teaching them to participate in the community, to take a role with all of the different agencies. So there's just a lot of good that comes out of that. And that's a year-long program. We've also got a professional conference coming up every year in November. We do a professional conference where we bring in nationwide speakers to speak. And that's mostly for counselors, LPCs, physicians, people working with folks that may have active addiction or substance use disorder.
Okay. Well, I was actually I was looking at what was on a disc golf tournament.
Yes, we've got a disc.
Fun.
Yeah, that is so much fun. That's one of the most fun things we do. We have a disc golf tournament every year, and we encourage everybody to come out. And I didn't know a lot about disc golf, and have there's a lot more to it than you would ever believe. And those folks are amazing. They're a lot of fun. They take their sport very seriously. This is one of those sanctioned tournaments by the official disc golf sanctioning folks. So if you're ranked, if you're disc golf, it's kind of like the runners. If you're ranked, our tournament does qualify. It is a fundraiser for our organization. So, and it's a lot of fun. So yes, and it attracts a lot of younger people. It's a very active sport. And so we're really excited about that.
Wonderful. So to dovetail off of that, what would be your greatest needs? You're talking about fundraising a little bit, but how can people help? What do you need?
What we really need? We need everybody to feel like they are responsible for this program. We think everybody needs to be talking to the people within their sphere of influence, whether it's their children, grandchildren, people at work. We think the answer to the drug problem is making sure that children are loved. A lot of times children begin using drugs because they don't feel good, and the drugs make them feel better. If they feel insecure, scared, growing up in today's world is really hard. And, we want to and parenting in today's world is really hard. So we want to make sure that we provide all of the resources that parents and teachers understand about the brain development, just like they understand about, other development things. When a child crawls and walks and runs, there's a certain brain development. We can keep that brain safe. We can raise people. If we can get them into adulthood where they have not become involved with alcohol and drugs, then the chances that they will have a normal relationship with alcohol and drugs the rest of their life is really good. So we want to make sure that parents understand this, that they're giving the children the emotional needs that they need. We all know that we've kind of got a mental health crisis. And so if kids are depressed or anxious or stressed, they are more likely to become involved with drugs and then create a drug problem on top of the mental health issue, and it just derails the child's life. So, and it hits, one of the things about addiction and drug use is it crosses all socioeconomic barriers. All of our kids are at risk for this. But the good news is many of our kids are growing up. They're doing the right thing. They're taking on leadership responsibilities. They're learning. They're figuring out what their passion is in life and growing into healthy adults. And that's what I think everybody's goal is for our children.
Absolutely. I've got two more things, and then we'll wrap it up. You provide like not off the record, drug testing for families that are concerned about their kids.
Right. We call it anonymous because
Okay.
it's not only confidential, but it's anonymous. A parent can bring the child into our office, or they can bring a urine specimen. It is urine drug testing, and we have a 12-panel test, and we can give the parent that information. It's not, we don't do observed screens. It cannot be used for any kind of litigation. This is really just for parents to do good parenting. In fact, a lot of times if a child has gotten involved in drugs and the parent has, like, say, taken the truck away or given some sort of restrictions and they want to give that back, they can say, I'm going to be drug testing you and making sure. It also is really good for the child because it gives them a reason to say no to their friends. If they're out with their friends, they can say, look, I'll be on restriction forever. And, I can't, so it gives them an excuse. It also, and it goes along with that delay, so that we
Sure.
can, the less we can have these kids using for the longest amount of time, we'll raise the healthiest children.
Well, and it sounds like it's like a good early intervention kind of thing. Like if you suspect, but you don't want to like take it to extreme if it's not.
Right. And it doesn't it's not on any permanent medical record. Or
right.
It's not, on your permanent record, as we used to say.
Yes.
So
I got it's starting with that all my life.
It's just a way for families to be able to manage their family and to enforce their rules and their values and their family. So it just is one more tool for parents to use.
Wonderful. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, and I saw that there is some vaping legislation coming up. Talk about the vaping thing and what that legislation looks like.
Right. Vaping is an interesting issue. When vape devices were first developed, they were smoking cessation devices. So, and anything that could get somebody to quit smoking was a good thing. So they're not regulated. They got on the market to help people quit smoking. They quickly changed into being smoking replacement devices. And that may be okay for adults, but then they developed, there was the big break. Then they developed the Juul, the one that looked like the flash drive and everything. And suddenly it made tobacco
cotton candy flavors.
Right. They put all the flavors in it and everything. And we had smoking at really low rates. I mean, kids weren't smoking anymore. And then that vape device came out, the cool one, and and kids started using it. Kids who were not quitting tobacco, they were starting out using nicotine with these vape devices. We know that nicotine disrupts learning. It also disrupts mood. So if kids already have a learning disability or have mood issues or whatever, it can only make those problems worse. So, these things are not very detectable. Now they've got the pouches. There's all kinds of, ways that kids can use nicotine that aren't really detected by adults. They can use them more often. And then that increases their rate of their probability of becoming addicted to nicotine. But then what's happened is that vape device now has become a drug delivery device. The majority of the vape devices that are seized by law enforcement off of young people today in our community are THC vapes. So now there's THC, there's methamphetamine, there's even fentanyl in those vape devices. So the vape device itself has just become a drug delivery device for young people. So we're not going after the adult vaping industry. We really want to get those vape devices out of the hands of kids, no matter what's in them. Also the chemicals, the propylene glycol, all of the different chemicals that are in that aerosol are also damaging to the lung. And, you can do lung damage just being, a teenager experimenting that would follow you the rest of your life. So we really want parents to understand that even if dad and granddad and mother are vaping, that's a whole different issue than young people. We do not want these. There's no good reason for a young person to have a vape device with them.
Yeah, and it's not like, oh, well, at least they're not smoking. It's very much the equivalently
Right.
bad and potentially
Yeah,
worse.
and we don't know. It's just like with smoking. It
Mhm.
was years before we knew. When I was a little girl, we didn't know how much damage smoking was going to do. It took a lot of years. So, but nothing like that. Chemicals like that are not supposed to go into your lungs. So it can't be good.
Right.
What exactly we're going to find out are the long-term effects. We don't know, but we've already had teenagers admitted to ICUs and ERs with lung damage from these vape devices. So schools are having a lot of problems with these devices on their campuses. Again, it's harder to have a combustible cigarette, in a classroom. It's real easy to have a vape device or a vape pouch in your, in a classroom. So kids are able to use it more and more often. And so we're going to see more damage from that. And that's what we're trying to prevent. And we're talking to kids about it, and they're really understanding it. We're doing a lot of education in the schools about the dangers of these things, the danger to their lungs, the dangers of developing addiction. And kids are really beginning to understand it. So we need all the adults to know that this is a very different thing for kids to be vaping. It's just very dangerous.
Okay. So any final thoughts before we close out for today?
Just if anybody wants to become involved, if they have any questions, if they're worried about somebody in their life who may be drinking or using, call us. There's a lot of help available. We can connect you with the resources that are most appropriate for you and your family. So, we're here for individuals and families in our community, and we are grateful to the United Way for all of the support they've given us through the years, not just in funding, which we are very grateful for that, but also connecting us to that whole family of agencies where we can better serve young people and families.
Wonderful. So I did put up your website on the screen, www.drugeducation.org. And the number is 251-478-7855. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to put up another graphic that has our sponsors all listed out again. Oop, let me take off that. And we'll close out by thanking Virginia for joining us today, and thanking our sponsors again. And we hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day.